Alright, so this computer is the second chair computer that is located in the control room that one of the supervisors works on during the mission. I would recommend that if you don't know the computers on the bridge that the crew use, take a look at those first, because this computer will make a lot more sense if you know what's happening on the other computers. So we're going to go ahead and start just in the top left corner here and work our way through. So damage team orders, this is where you can see the teams that the damage control officers send out, and it will say exactly what they typed in that box. So it might say, you know, send 3 general engineers to deck 7, you know, to do this. And this is where you can just keep track of it. Next to it, it's hard to see, but it says damage messages. This is where you can message with your damage control officers. Now their messages show in here as well as yours. So to send them a message, you have to click the send button first. And what would you like to send? Hello. Now this is also a hint. Type in all capital letters. It just looks better. So you do that, it says hello sir, and you're on your way. Now this is just a helpful hint. Previously we were having problems with messaging and things because of punctuation. For some reason the computer programming just couldn't handle punctuation. So if you are trying to send messages and things with punctuation and it's not getting through to the crew, try doing things without punctuation. I know it looks worse. Obviously we like punctuation and things, but it's better to not have punctuation and have them get the messages than to not have them receive any messages. So those are your two damage control where you can like talk to them and do things. We're going to skip over here to where you can put in damaged systems. Now with this, all you do is you click in the box and type in the name of the damaged system. So it's CO2 scrubbers. Once you type it in, you click send, and it will update on their computer the list of the damaged systems. So if they repaired the system, you just delete it. Now your helpful hint of the day, well, 2 helpful hints. First, you can't put a damaged system on the list that we don't have a report for. For example, if I decide to break oxygen generators and we haven't written a damage report for it, when the crew clicks on that system on the bridge, they're not going to get any steps for how to fix it, and a lot of times they're going to be really confused. So make sure that we actually have a damage report when you break things. Also, double check with the flight director what they actually want broken. You can't just decide, oh, I feel like breaking the warp engines right now when we need them in the mission. So usually you're going to wait on here for the flight director to say, okay, we're breaking warp engines, we're breaking the oxygen generators, or whatever. The other thing is you have to spell the name of the system right, otherwise the damage report won't pull up on their computer. One of the common ones that I see and I do sometimes is spelling missiles like that instead of putting missiles, which is the correct spelling. So just, you know, make sure you're spelling it right, and obviously if there's a problem, you're probably going to hear about it and you can fix the spelling. Now this middle box right here is a parts transfer. This is where you can see when the crew transfers parts from the left wing station, the right wing station, and from medical on the Columbia. Really, you don't generally have to do very much here. You can just see, oh, they're actually doing their job in transferring parts. Over here we have the sensor scans. This is where the sensors officer can send scans, and what they're scanning for shows up here in this box. You type the response down here. Now the important thing to remember with scans is that you are a computer, okay? So let's say for example they scan for ships. You wouldn't type I don't see any, right? That doesn't make sense. Your generic response, you know, none detected, detected, 4 detected, you know, whatever. So make sure that it's computer-like. You also want to try on everything here to make sure you're spelling things right. But once you type in your scan response, like none detected, you click send, and it will send to their computer. This command status box, neither ship right now has the station that this box controls, so don't worry about this box at all, which is pretty awesome. Here in the middle we have our communications stuff. So this is where you can make calls to communications. So if you're calling an internal on an internal frequency, you pick what room. So I'm calling from escape pod access on deck 2. I click internal, and you can see once it shows up on here, that's what's showing up on their computer. If you're calling external, you can click random external and it will give them the random amplitude, frequency, and phase that then they can connect to. This, if you click external, you have to type in exactly what amplitude, frequency, and phase. So for the most part, you can just do the random external and it's fine. This box here shows what they have connected to on their computer. So it might say, if they were calling Escape Pod Access Deck 2, it would say Escape Pod Access Deck 2, and you would know that's how you would answer when you pick up the phone. Now, on the phone, obviously you are not the same person every time, right? There are multiple people on the ship. So this is where some creativity and fun comes in, because you can use various accents, you can raise the pitch of your voice or lower it, whatever you need to do to make it sound like there are multiple people on the ship. If you have other interns on the ship or who are on your staff, or other supervisors or things, of course pass the phone around so that they can be various people, but just know you don't want to talk in your same voice the whole time. Over here we have the medical orders. Now if you're in the Atlantis, don't worry about this box because there's not a medical officer. In the Columbia, this is where you can see when the medical officer sends out teams. So you can check to see where they're sending teams and who they're sending. Going along with the medical stuff, we can see here are the medical messages. This is where you can communicate with the medical officer. So just like the damage messages up top here, you have to click send first, and then you can type whatever message you want to send. Once again, we're just going to say hello, sir. Now, this is an important point to note too, is with all of your messaging, they are technically a superior officer to you. So you're always going to want to put sir. If it's a girl, you can start off with sir and switch to ma'am. If they say, I'm a girl, you should call me ma'am, although technically they would still be called sir. It really doesn't matter either way. So just make sure to pick one and stick to it, and then their messages will show up under here as well. Also, when you're messaging, a few things to avoid: don't use emoticons, so don't put smiley faces, frowny faces, all of that. You are a member of the military, so you want your messages to be more professional than that. Alright, other things we have: long range over here. This is where you can send long range messages to the communications officers. So their messages show here, so it might say, to Colcom from, the UCS Columbia, and say whatever message they're sending. When you send messages, you need to put to UCS Atlantis or Columbia or whoever. I can spell, right? Atlantis from Colcom or whoever you're sending it from, and then type your message. Good luck on your mission, keep us updated, or whatever it is you want to say. Then you click send and it will send your message. Just like everything else, keep it professional, no smiley faces, emoticons, things like that. Here we have the security scans. So this is where they send their internal scans. It could say intruders, or whatever it is they're scanning for inside this upper box. You type here inside the lower box, none detected, 4 intruders detected on deck 7, things like that. And once again, you're like a computer, so make sure that your scan answers are computer-like. We have over here the security messages. So just like the other messaging systems, you have to click send first. This you're typing as security officers, so you might say, sir, we have intruders on deck 17. We need security down there right away. Now usually I also don't recommend doing too many exclamation marks because that gets a little weird, but an occasional exclamation mark to get your point across is totally fine. And then their messages will come back here as well. Now with security, when you're doing second chair, it is your job to keep them entertained. That means that you need to start doing what we call second stories. Now this applies to security, it applies to the medical station. Most of the stations, you are going to be doing second stories. Now second stories are stories that add to the mission that maybe don't apply to the actual mission itself. So for example, if the mission was the crew was going to pick up prisoners from prison facility, then security might need to start getting security officers ready, right, to receive prisoners, things like that. So you just kind of have to think through the mission and figure out what are things the kids can be doing at their jobs that make sense with the mission, that's entertaining, but that don't take over the mission. You don't want your little second stories to, make everyone distracted and focused on that, because they need to be focusing on the main story that the flight director is trying to get through. Now, back to security, you can see down here the security team orders. That is where you can see what team security sends out, and it will say in that box exactly what they type in their own box. Next, we have probe commands. If they launch a probe, then give it a command. It will show up right here, like go to Earth, or go attack this ship, or whatever. So you can do things with the probe with that. Here is where you can send the probe info to their computer. So let's say they sent a probe out. You could type in, 2 ships detected approaching, and then just click the send button. Make sure if they have like tactical probes out there and they're firing and doing things like that, then, and telling them to fire through the commands, tell them what's happening. Say enemy ship has been hit, right? Because they want to know that their probes and things are actually doing something. Now this last box here is the thrusters box. This is where you can see when the right wing officer is using thrusters to navigate. So if they click the forward thrusters, it will say forward. If they click starboard, it will say starboard. If you ever see the thrusters firing, you need to tell the flight director, because they need to know that the thrusters are firing and, move the ship wherever it needs to go. So keep an eye on that box and you'll be good.